Hello guys, this is Youlostbro for PokerStars and today we will be playing Heads Up Sit and Goes at PokerStars, as I was requested to play to rule all the stakes from the bottom. So therefore I thought that we would just begin from the very smallest sit and go available and move higher from there. So let's begin from the $1.5 game and let's see how big games we actually get to play today, given we have 90 minutes and almost $100 to spend in this coaching. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to post something to the chat box. I'll actually make this almost as big as possible. So first opponent is from Brazil. He's only one table in and this seems to have a system, so most likely not going to be the strongest of opponents. Nevertheless, we also have the silver star, but yeah, that's pretty much because I don't put too much volume, or yeah, I don't play too much on PokerStars nowadays. With Jack 7 offsuit I defended a mean raise and then check called the flop. On such run out, I think we are just best of value betting ourselves. He shouldn't have too many 9x hands and almost no 10x hands. Most 9x hands would have c-betted to turn because those would include some kind of a draw. So if he has a 9, it's some kind of like queen 9 or 9 deuce type of hand. With a queen, 1 over and a gut shot, I'm just going to c-bet. King deuce offsuit seems to be a good enough hand to call a mean raise with. I don't think there's betting makes too much sense at any point. He either has a give up or some kind of hand that he or she has given up with, or then he's calling most likely. It seems like he's dunk betting some, so this was his second dunk bet in this match, and the other times he has just folded against the continuation bet. So if that's what he's gonna do in the future as well, his donk bets are usually somewhat stronger hands like pairs and draws, and he's just going to fold continuation bet every single time. Ace 4 is not good enough hand to bet. I was actually going to check call this fairly often, but the pot sized bet makes me question my plan. He shouldn't have too many straight draws or flush draws, because most of them would, in my opinion, bet the turn. So maybe I will just call this nevertheless. He actually did have a flush run. I'm just going to write a note about that. Yeah. Nine seven offsuit, again a legit hand to defend with. And I'm just folding against the half pot C, but even if I had one heart, I might have considered a check raise there. This is his first 3-bet, so I'm not defending with that weak of a hand. I think I will open every single hand until his 3-bet is going to be a bit higher, a bit bigger. Yet again, with no equity, I'm just going to fold against the C-bet. So this is pretty much how I begin my sit and goes. Usually I just begin with opening every single hand and defending pretty lightly against a min raise. Queen 4 suited is hand I usually wouldn't see, but always. But against a villain who has folded against every single C, but I prefer the C, but even those type of hands, it's better to just win the hand there. Obviously, with such small sample, it's not certain that he's always going to fold against the continuation bet, but it's a bit more likely that with fairly high donk betting frequencies, he's going to fold more often. I think we always need to bank a win to move up, so I think it's a good idea to win one game at every single stage, small stake, and then move up. So if he had checked, I think I would have still c-betted, even though he has folded every single time, because the sample size is just not enough to justify checking. But if this is the case in a very long run, like after like 50 hands, he always donk bets when he's going to continue and always folds against the c-bet, then I wouldn't c-bet for value at all, or my c-bets would have to be a lot smaller size. The c-bet sizing would have to be a lot smaller. I'm just raising with hands this strong against this donk bet. Yeah, with a $100 bankroll, I don't think we are getting the very highest stakes. Even though if we win every single game, the size of our bankroll is going to increase. I 3-bet bluffed once, and this hand is actually good enough to 3-bet for value. Not the greatest flop, even though I don't think he's gonna hit that too often, but I'm still gonna begin with the check, and I'm actually just going to check fold. I would see, but with one heart in my hand. So let's say ace 10 offsuit with a heart, I would see, but I don't think, and I have a ton of check calling hands too. Uh, Pretty big tree, but I have a ton of check calling hands too, so I'm not check folding too often. So I don't think he can just bet every time I check. Plus, I can, if I knew that he's gonna bet there against my check a lot, I can just take wider check call and check raise range in that situation. But let's say if he had like jack 10 with no flush draw outs, I don't think he's always going to bet against my check. This hand I'm just going to check call. Ace high is good enough hand to just check in this situation. Now we turn a river a pair. Yet again, he shouldn't have too many one spade hands because those would usually just c-bet or bet a turn. So I might have called the river bet depending on the sizing. Yet again, he keeps donk betting. This time I think he's actually going to call our raise or re-raise because he's usually going to have some type of straight draw or one pair type of hand, or sometimes obviously better, but usually something to continue with. And we have been raising him quite many times, so he might just be a like bit frustrated. So pretty aggressive lines, but yeah, I'm actually going to write a note. Ace queen, fairly strong hand to shove with 4 big blinds. And let's see if we get to manage to bink few more of these. And Jack 7 suited is strong enough hand to shove with less than 7 big blinds. I need to check out from the heads up Nash what it says about 8-6 suited. I think it's not a call against 8 big blind shove, but if it's any close, I would have took the stop and go line. Jack deuce offsuit is, I don't think it's good enough to shove, and yeah, it's not in a Nash. I'm using this heads up Nash range pretty much when I have less than 8 big blinds, and I can just, if my opponent is very tight, I can just shove a bit bigger, a bit more hands with those stack sizes than Nash would. I'm just going to rematch those six big blind kind of coolers, jacks against ace queen. I'm just going to open another match since we didn't win, and hopefully we'll manage to win one game at this very smallest level. Oh, I don't have the Twitch chat open again. So if you want me to open it, just please link me. Hi, okay. My HUD can't be downloaded. I have built it myself from the beginning. If you wanted to, I guess I could send it to you, but I think you're just better off building your own HUD. Ace-9 is good enough hand to just check to the showdown. Norwegian, villain. Those are usually good, but then again, this is the smallest of all the stakes, and he limps the first hand. Queen high again, good enough hand to just check the showdown. I'm calling the mean bet. I think I'm winning sometimes in a showdown, and yeah, I think I'm sometimes winning. Okay, he didn't bet the king there, so that's mention worthy. I'll just put this chat in here, since we are only one tabling we have plenty of room. I'm two barreling for, I guess, teenish value, but I think he's going to call me with a lot of hands still, like a lot of draws, and yeah. Tens I want to raise his limp with. Not the greatest flop, so I'm just going to check call this one street with a gut shot and a flush draw. He bets fairly small. I think he's usually got something when he bets here though, at least like one spade. Usually not like 8-7 of diamonds type of hand. He keeps betting very small, so I'm just going to call again, and often folding on the river unimproved. Okay, we were in a pretty bad shape. I don't remember the turn card exactly, although it doesn't make too big of a difference whether it was a 6 or a 3 in that spot. I like to write a lot of notes. The way I write down notes is pretty quick, and it gives me a ton of information. I often type down notes if type down, is that something, is that English? I don't know. Yeah, I type down notes if my opponent does something that I wouldn't do. For example, in this queen jack hand, I would not have bet myself on the flop. I would have just checked, and and also on the turn I would not have bet. And his sizings were fairly small with a weakish hand. Even though it was a pair and a flush draw, it's pretty weak compared to the like other possible hands he could have. So if he uses bigger sizings elsewhere, it can tell me something about the strength of his hand. He min 3-bet it and then just check the flop, so I try to take it down with a gut shot. And then he makes a min check raise, so we actually get a fairly good odds to just draw to a straight. Now I'm not betting. He has shown strength on the 2 out of 2 threes, so I don't want to be check raised on this turn again. Plus we get more outs with the open ender. And again, a good spot to write a note showing that he can check raise as a 3-better. So in the future I wouldn't bet myself too widely in those spots. This is a spot where my opponent is more likely to have one diamond hand, so I'm going to check call this river bet, since my value betting myself would be fairly thin he didn't opt to bluff on the river when he missed. So given that, my check call would have been a bit too thin, I think. Yeah, I'm just calling the min bet. Yeah. I'm just trying to play small pots against this guy. Last time he checked the flop, he was most likely just folding the turn, but turned a draw to call with. So I think I will bluff a lot against this guy when he doesn't limp bet. I think he's so passive, and his 3-bets are min 3-bets, which I can always call. So I'm open raising every single hand and c-betting a lot of the time, since he has donk bet something. And also I want to raise his limps fairly thin for value, and I would assume never as a bluff. And check calling the min bet, and calling the min bet again. Yeah. So he didn't limp bet with didn't bet the flop against my check. So in the future, if he doesn't, I can't assume that he's gonna be too capped in those situations. Whereas against some other opponents, I could. Not the greatest flop again, but I don't like to check call in these situations, so I'm just betting myself once. He actually could have like a flush draw himself. Given that he was so passive last time, I could have just checked the flop. I think I have to fold here, but he doesn't have to have a real hand. Looks like we might be losing the second game also. So not too impressive of a start even at the smallest stakes. Yeah. Turn pairing a tree is not a great card for me to bet on. Also given with that he didn't bet himself in a spot where I would have fall for value, so he might be like a bit slow play happier than most of us are. Ace King suited is a good hand, and I want to again raise small to get him to put money in. King Queen. He has some type of check raise range on the flop, so I would assume that his donk bets don't need to be as strong. So I'm just thinking between calling and raising, and I think raising has a ton of value here. Now he actually donk bet called with the bottom pair, so that's obviously bad for us. So we were kind of right with him. His donk bets being fairly bad hands, like not the strongest of hands. At least it wasn't the case in that hand. But he didn't end up folding that hand as I would have assumed him to do. King high, I don't think I want to see bet here. I'm just checking the showdown unless I improve. And against the fairly big bet, I just fold. I play some high pairs on the other sides whenever I don't have any kind of action. I mostly like to play cash games or the regular or turbos. But when I got absolutely nothing running, I might open a hyper turbo or two. So yeah, sometimes I can't fold against the mean bets. Sometimes he's just going to have like ace 10 here or something. So yeah, mean bets needs to be called. This is actually good enough second pair for me to bet here. And he min raises, which is not sweet, but I'm not folding a pair against the min raise. Such small bets. I assume that he's gonna have like a 9, a ton in this spot. But sometimes he could have like a strong draw. So I need to call this very small turn bet again, I think. Pocket jacks. He 3-bets, which he hasn't been doing a ton. I'm just going to shove here. 22 big blinds. And looks like we win a coin flip. Obviously not the greatest of outcome to get the money in those spots. I can't pronounce your nickname, so I just call you Kid. But Kid asks, what are my real stakes? The stakes I usually play vary from... I don't actually know my average buy-in in sit and goes, but it's somewhere around... It's a bit less than 50 euros, I think. And I play NL50 and NL100 and sometimes NL200 in cash games. So incident goes like from 30 to 100 euro games, and in cash games 50 to 200 dollar games. Shoved again over a limp, and we finally won a game. Running fairly well actually, but yeah, I don't mind. So we are off the $3.5 games. I'm not expecting these games to be too much tougher than the $1.5 games were, but let's see. Yeah, Detrusitol has a decent points. Thank you, Kid, for feedback. I don't know if you know, but if you have been following us, but this actually isn't my YouTube channel. I just work for the pokerimandia.com at the moment. I think it can be revealed that this is going to be the second last coaching session for me for this side, for now at least. I see bet it the flop with Jack 10, and I think I want to just see bet the turn as well. When since I pick up a gut shot, and this river I'm just going to check. He's gonna have ace too often. And turn bet is pretty much just to get a king high or 4 or 3 to fold. Yeah, after calling 2 bets, he's gonna have ace a lot. Not much has been happening. He's mean raising, and yeah, he seems to be fairly solid for these stakes at least compared to the Norwegian guy I just played. He's at least open raising and so on. We've turned a guard shot and 1 over, so I'm calling this turn bet. He can just bet with a ton of hands. And actually I'm just checking this down. This card is the type that he might not be bluffing too often on, and we win all of his air hands. Plus he might check call with a jack or 7 sometimes, so I'm just checking. But yeah, pretty good river card for us, for him not to bet there, because we could easily have a king x also. I'm not c-betting the middle pair this bad. And again, I'm calling the turn bet against all the draws that he could have. And yeah, I actually can't do anything about this. I don't have too many flush draws in my range, and he has a ton, and the same goes with the straight draws. He seems to be playing a bit too tight on the bottom, but other than that, he seems to be decent. He tries donk betting for some reason. I'm just calling and going to call this turn also. Now he uses a bit bigger sizing. I'm going to fold river fairly often in this spot. Not the greatest of situations, but he can have some straights and he shouldn't bluff too often on this river, so I just think he's gonna have a queen almost always. So I'm just folding, even though it sucks to fold a real hand. He makes fairly small tree, but I'm not folding hand this good against a small tree bet. And a flop I actually can't do nothing on. It would actually be nice to know how he does in these games, if he actually grinds these games. Because if he does, I think he does fairly well. I need to check call the turn with top pair. He can have some 8s, but this is also a card that he could bluff on if he has a hand like this that has just given up on the flop. And top pair is a very good hand to have in this spot. If he played every single button, I think he would do very well. It seems like he opens 2.5x. 8-7 suited is pretty good hand to 3-bet with, so I opted to do so. He has multiple 3-bet sizing. Queen 6 against a bit bigger tree, but is a fold. So he mean raises now. The last time he opened 2.5x, so let's see whether he keeps min raising or whether he has multiple open raise sizings also. Okay, he opens 2.5x. Usually when they have multiple open raise sizes, the bigger the open raise, the better the hand. So I'll be more tempted to 3-bet against his min raises. But this is, well, this can be a 3-bet. I don't think this shallow flatting is too great of an option. And at least this time he min raise folded. I'm open raising every single hand since he only plays 47% at this moment. And less than 25 big blinds deep, I decrease my c-bet sizing. This is fairly close. If he opened every single hand, I would have flatted, but he's a bit tighter, so I just fold. This is very big, right? 8.5 big blind 3-bet. So I'm just folding. I would think that he does fairly well in these games, but he's definitely not great. I opted to 3-bet bluff again, and with a gut shot I'm definitely c-betting a low flop that I assume that he's rarely going to hit a pair on or anything good enough to continue with. King 4 off is good enough hand to defend, and I'm usually not folding against even 3 barrels. His turn sizes are big, too big for me to like them as standard bets, but I would not have folded. Okay, he turned a gut shot and opted to bet with it, and then revert a pair and decided that he's gonna win sometimes, so it's fine. I think it's just bet sizings that I don't like. This hand I'm 3-betting for value. And against the 4-bet shove I would have actually called, I think. So we are halfway the coaching session and we are already on the second stake. So let's see whether we get to play the very big games at all tonight. With trips I'm just letting him to barrel. Actually he doesn't have like too many calling hands to my shove either, unless he's beating me. So I just like to check call multiple times. He actually had pocket jacks, so queen is a unfortunate card, and also he would have called out a shove on the turn, I think. I don't understand Death question. I opted to limp and I was planning to limp call 12 big blinds. And on the flop I didn't want to see bet because he might be willing to bet sometimes, and yeah, I could just bet there. And now on the river I'm just betting. Oh yeah, you mean that there's nobody there? Oh, nobody in here. Oh, okay. Jack 10 offsuit is good enough hand to call 10 big blinds. And seems like we are running somewhat good in the all-in situations. So off to a $7 game. We are going to play against this guy who was waiting in the lobby. Some guy from Belgium. So let's see how he plays. 3 X's. King 6 offsuit is borderline defend. So usually these villains who wait, they should be a bit better, because recreational players usually are too lazy to wait for the action, and if this guy gets to keep the lobby, he's usually not the worst of all opponents, because the better ones should usually sit them. But surprisingly, even these villains seem to be very bad from time to time. I 3-betted Jack 10, no 10-9, and going to see but with gut shot and backdoor flush draw. 4 is actually not a great card to barrel on, so I'm just checking and going to give up. And again, I'm min raising all the hands, and this is not a great flop to see bet on. Big portion of his defense are going to check call, so it's fine just to give up with 2 undercards and no backdoor equity and no nothing pretty much. Again, not the greatest flop. Usually check call ranges contain cards that can call this bet, but I have 1 over and every single backdoor draw, so I'm betting once and sometimes 2 or 3 times, and 4 is not a great card for me to bet. Ace king high with a king high flush draw, just checking and delay c betting when I hit the flush. This is good because he's usually not assuming me to have a flush here, since I check the flop. He for some reason just min raised now, and he has been 3xing before. I don't know why, but for some reason he opted to do it. I need to bet he's sometimes is going to have a queen to call me with them. Yeah, I would also bluff in this spot sometimes. And usually when I check, he's not going to bet himself with like Jack 9 of suit, because he is just hoping for the board to play. So the blinds increase. Queen 9 of suit is borderline. If it was suited, I would have raised, and even Queen 10 I would have raised, but It's close. We flop a flush draw. I'm just going to save it, hoping to get a fold. Now he 3x's again, so seems like he could have multiple sizings. He folded against a turn lead last time, but 3 is definitely not a great card for me to bet, and king high might be good sometimes, so I'm just checking it down. He had a jack 10 and he didn't even bet the river, so definitely not good, too good of an opponent. Not too good of a player. He's a good opponent, but not just mainly because he doesn't play too good. He check raises on a board that he's gonna have some value hands obviously, but most often just draws, so I'm calling this flop. And his turn sizing is pretty big, but I don't think I can call, fold here. I'm just calling and calling every single non-club, maybe non-3 river cards. Okay, 3 of clubs is maybe the worst, like one of the worst river cards. So now I just need to fold here. We don't beat anything, I think. 8-7 and 8-6 we might beat, but yeah. I think we played it fine. 19 big blinds and just 3-bet shoving ace jack. Let's see if he wants to play again. Wrote a note that he even used the I don't want to play a $3.5 game. I want to play a $7 game. With even 18 big blinds, he 3x'd button. So again, this guy was waiting in the lobby. So let's see whether it was than the last opponent who was waiting for action. He seems to be playing fairly slow, even though he's only one tabling and he has folded the first 2 hands. Or 3 hands actually, so maybe not the best of players. This is a board where I'm actually going to 3-barrel. If he 3-bets like some of the best hands even, he's rarely going to have a hand to call me with 3 times. And I have a gut shot out. Gut shot out to back me up. He's playing slow one. He doesn't like to open raise on the button, so definitely not the greatest of opponents again. This might take a while, but I think we're going to beat this guy usually. When he plays extremely tight, then we just need to be cautious against his min raises or even against his min raises and the times we defense. Yeah, I like to challenge. Well, the sites I mainly play on allow shark scope, so I usually scope the opponents. I don't like to play because I don't recognize, because I don't want to play like 100 euro crushers and just to find out whether they are good or not. So if they have blocked their scope and they don't get action for a while, they're usually fairly good. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But on the sites I play, I usually recognize the very best players. So this is interesting because on this turn card he should have a lot of calling hands. If he calls this flop, he's usually going to call the turn bet as well. But we turn an open ender, so this means that we can, on most river cards, we can just barrel this. Unless the river was like 3 or deuce or pairs the flop or turn card, I would have barreled just to get a fold from 7 or 8. Now we hit the straight and I'm just value betting against a king, or so I don't want to bet too big. Yeah, at these stakes I don't mind playing even the air quoted better players, because I think there should be absolutely no better players than me at these stakes. It doesn't make sense for them to play this small games this small. Four big blind 3-bet. If my hand played any better, or if his range was any wider, I would call and I would absolutely fold no hands. But now I think that his range is just going to be extremely tight, and Queen 3 offsuit has a poor playability, so this is one of the very few moments when you actually see me fold against the 4 big blind 3-bet. Doesn't happen daily. So against a guy like this, just it's very important to min raise open every single hand, and even more important to not play too loose against his raises. I check raise, I'm just folding with no equity. Ace queen I would have 3-betted against his raise. So for some reason this is not too rare that my opponent decides that it's a good idea to play more hands on the big blind than on the small blind. It just happens like shockingly often. Well, it depends on how much you win. When I was playing these small stakes, I 4 to 6 tabled myself, and my ROI was something like 5 to 8%. But yeah, I don't know, I guess you get something like, I don't really know, maybe like $10 per hour, but it depends on how much you win. Just try it out, and if you don't have experience 4 or 6 tabling, I really can't recommend you to do that because it's crazy. I can't even 6 table nowadays and be on my comfort zone. I don't know which of my comments you were laughing at, but on the turn I decided it was a good spot to bet on, and on this river I'm just check folding. I need to sneeze, so I'm going to mute the microphone for a few seconds. Okay, we are back. Midnight sun is coming in Finland, so it wouldn't be great to be to get some type of flu. Or I started to exercise actually just few days ago again after a fairly long break, and it seems like always when I restart to exercise I get sick. I don't know why that keeps happening, but this is not the first or even the second or third time this happens. But hopefully it just goes by. So 30 minutes to go. Keep asking questions, even though if I don't know the exact answers, I really don't mind the questions. I think it's great if I have a company. So shout out to Chicago Blackhawks who won the Stanley Cup last night. I don't know what to think about Kimmo Timonen because obviously I respect him a ton. I'm going to check this turn also. I'm just going to check it down. He played fairly passive with the jack, so he might actually end up having a better hand than me sometimes. So yeah, I respect Kimmo Timonen, but it doesn't feel... I don't know what he thinks about his Stanley Cup win, because he wasn't like big part of the team and barely played in the finals and so on. So I don't know if he can enjoy it as much as he would have if the Philadelphia would have won or something. Yeah, folding this. I'm still open raising every single hand because he's just playing extremely tight. Yeah, pretty much, unless there's a good reason to see, but like if he just continues with absolutely everything, then I might. Or if the board is good for me to like 3 barrel on and get him to fold his entire range. Then I might see it with small bottom pairs, but I'm almost always checking. I think he's going to call my turn c-bet fairly often, so I'm just going to check and hope to hit my straight. And if he had a king, I don't know if he. I'm bluffing very often if I bluff this with this hand with absolutely no blockers to anything. But I think King X hand might fold. I didn't. It shouldn't really, but he's just playing extremely tight, so I thought that he wasn't likely to call me lightly. Bit spewy, but he sometimes even has like a 5 or maybe queen jack, I don't know. So he doesn't always have a king. This I don't want to multiple barrel with. Although I guess I'm betting twice, and if I'm betting twice, the turn is the straight to bet. Meh. This is gross. Well, when he says dunk on the chat, he's not bluffing. I think the turn is better. I'm just better off betting the turn and checking the river. Because I want to bet 2 straights, and he hasn't been folding too much post flop, so he doesn't always have a top pair or hand that strong, and with multiple draws I want to bet the turn and check the river compared to the other option. Yeah, I guess I should not have spewed. This is a good enough hand to shove. Against the guy this tight, I'm shoving wider than Nash tells me to, but this is way better hand than with less than 10 big blinds behind. I can just mean c-bet and he can't really do nothing about it. It doesn't look like that he should. I feel like spewing again. He shouldn't have like too many real hands. Yeah, he shouldn't donk bet the turn with any real hand, so I think he's just always bluffing there, or almost always. Stacked Pat Heads asks what I feel like. I don't know how ICMizer works. I have actually absolutely no comments about that, but there's no ICM in heads up. So yeah, that's all I can say about that. But yeah, the ranges, I don't know what the ranges look like in those situations, but I use the for shallow stacks I use the Nash equilibrium ranges pretty much for like less than 10 big blinds. Yeah, seems like he was trying to run me over. Yes, it bet calling is definitely an option, but this guy hasn't been active at all. So it it seemed like he's gonna have it a lot. Plus he uh, commented something in the chat box, which is usually the sign of strength. Yeah, queen four suited. I like to limp here. Yeah, if so, like I said, I don't know anything about this software, but if it can be, then it's I don't see why not to use it. I don't know enough of that subject to say anything really. Hmm. I don't think he's bluffing too often in this spot, so even against the mean bet, I just fold. Usually I would defend, but he's been extremely tight, so I just fold. And I'm going to mean raise this. Could be limped as well. This I would have shoved, and this I will shove. 5-3 suited, never playing against any action. Queen 6 offsuit, again limping. Um, I think I'm just checking. I don't want to be check raised here, and I'm just betting the turn myself against the check. That was a pretty tough spot though. I'm still going to mean raise folding a ton since he's just playing too tight. Kalyan has good points about that software. And Queen Jack's offsuit I would have played somehow. I would have defended against the mean raise, and also I would have called a shove. Queen at offsuit can be defended against the mean raise. Well, yet again he's playing extremely tight. I think it still can be defended. Yeah, might be a good idea to use it then. This I'm just going to raise call. Could be also limped called. This guy doesn't seem to like the raise over limps. and shoving myself with a small suited ace. I was considering that option also, and just after I had shoved, I thought it might be, but yet again, yeah, I think since he's playing extremely tight, it might be better just to shove and get a ton of folds compared to getting him free roll his some of his equity. It's fairly close though. It really depends on how tight of a player he really is. King 6. It seems like he's not flooding my min raises at all, so I don't think I need to limp. I can just min raise every single hand and raise call or raise fold. Looks like he's the type I don't want to limp against at all, because he's not raising. I think he's just limp raising the same range, or raising the limp with the same range that he would 3-bit shove. It looks like. He had a limping hand there, and yeah, 9 deuce offsuit. With 3 big blinds I don't expect to have folding equity, so even though I would shove wider than an Ash tells me to in most spots, in this spot I won't. 10 deuce, this is great. I'm just going to min raise and hope he misreads the situation. He doesn't. This was actually sweet, because now with 5 big blinds I expect to have more folding equity that I would against most players. Yet again, with 5 big blinds it's just get it in a ton and hoping to get a fold most of the time. Yeah, I'm actually getting a good shoving hands also. So we are almost even. King 3 offsuit. Nash tells me to call all the way to 8.7 big blinds, and I have 8, so usually this would be a call, but against such a tight player I just fold and expect to win more by shoving and getting folds. So yeah, shoving all these at least somewhat playable hands. Jack 4 offsuit. Nash tells you to shove 5.4. I have 8.5, so I can min raise fold against this guy. Queen 7, quite similar to the King 3. Yeah. There's no IPM in heads up. And Kale confirms. We 10-4 offsuit is a call. It just bit stronger than the Nash tells you to. So usually I wouldn't call against the very tight players, but when it's only like 3 big blinds effective, I'm not playing too much tighter than the Nash tells you to, because you get such a good pot odds. We are just flipping and putting the money in and seeing what happens. I think the game after this one will be my last one, because the time is running up. So I think the last game will be $30 game, or maybe even $60 game. Let's see. I want the lobby though, most likely. Queen Jack is a call. We are getting pretty strong hands, 5 big blinds effective. Yeah, getting it in. It's funny that even with these very small stack sizes, I think I'm making money against him. Like with less than 8 big blinds, I think I could play against this guy. I think I'm just, yeah, giving him the yellow label. So he doubled up, and now I almost won the chips back. Jack 7 offsuit. Nash tells you to call 7.6 big blinds. This is pretty close. If he had like 5, I would have definitely called, but 6 is close. He's just extremely tight, so I guess I can, like Phil Helmut tells you, to just wait for the better spots. Jack deuce offsuit is shove almost for 5 big blinds, and against the need I think I can just shove it here. Getting it in dominated a lot though. Yeah, I agree with Colin. We have gotten it in a ton in these matches. I don't know for how many times. Yeah, I can link you the chart, or actually I'm going to link it to our forum, so get it from there. This has actually taken a very long time. Just flipping. Now it looks like it ended. No, it didn't. Yeah, less than 2 big blinds. I'm not folding anything. This was it. So I think I'll play this $30 game for the last time for tonight. We gotta rush Creek Supernova as our last opponent. So let's see how he plays. I think this is a c-bet. 2 overs and one heart. Checking the turn. I'm betting the river fairly big. We usually shouldn't have this good of a hand. Yeah, I don't think I have ever gotten to this that blind level in a turbo sit and go. So this is going to be the last sit and go for today. I'm just checking it down and hoping to win a showdown. And yet again, just like in those smaller stakes, I'm just min raising all the hands in the beginning. This is a good enough hand to call a 3-bet with. Let's see if he tells us how many tables he's playing. No, I'm calling a half pot c-bet here. We turn a flush draw. This is actually a card that he doesn't c-bet a ton on, I would think. So he's usually gonna have like flush draw or better real than I do, or maybe like 10-9 or something. But I get a very good odds here to call with my flush draw and top pair. Sometimes I even have the best hand here. And this is a good river because he's not expecting us to have a flush here. And even if he has pocket tens or jacks or something like that, he's most likely to take this line. And I don't think he's bluffing too often. And we can have a ton of flush draws here. So I think he's just check calling us with pocket tens. Pocket aces even. Unlucky. Yeah. So by winning most of the smaller games and winning the last game, we showed a profit in this session. No, I don't think it does make sense to bluff with 7 deuce because we win most of his air hands and he's not folding the too many of those better hands, I think. And he can have some raising hands on the river also, so I just like to check and win most of the time on the shoulder. I think I really win like over half the time here in that spot. So yeah, I know it's 5 minutes early, but I think I'm quitting for tonight. So we got to play on 4 different stakes, and at least the three smaller stakes, they were extremely soft. And the $30 opponent, the Supernova, actually played fairly well that hand, but it was kind of a cooler. So yeah, this was actually my last coaching session in English, for now at least. And next week on Thursday there will be my last coaching session for Pokerimania. I don't know what we are going to do then quite yet, but if you understand Finnish, and even if you don't, feel free to join us. And yeah, this was it. I guess we don't see you next time, as I'm used to saying in this situation, but now I can just say bye. Yeah, bye.